This is my favorite GMT Master 2. It bears the reference number 116719. Now you're probably familiar with the 116710, LN and BLNR, but you're probably wondering, 116719, that's not the most popular GMT Master 2. And well, you're right. On first impressions, this looks like a Pepsi. You'd think that this is the Pepsi model that Rolex launched back in 2018. But it's not quite that simple. It is a Pepsi, but it's not just a Pepsi. Well, what I'm trying to say is that this is a white gold Pepsi. So this precedes the Pepsi 126710 reference. Now that's a stainless steel watch, completely. And it came on the Jubilee bracelet initially, but now they've relaunched the Oyster bracelet, available on both the BLNR and the Pepsi models, the BLRO. So this is also a BLRO, but it's got the Oyster bracelet and it's no longer made. This is the first white gold GMT Master 2 Pepsi reference. So this is the 116719 BLRO. Now, it's completely white gold. The case, bracelet, everything. It's got a black dial, which is significant because the new updated version of this watch, so the 126719 BLRO, that one has a blue dial. So they've stopped making this in the black dial because they launched the Pepsi and didn't want to confuse people between the two watches. There has to be at least some recognizable difference between the two. So this piece actually ran from 2014 to 2018. It was launched in 2014. So they discontinued it in 2018, and then we got the new Pepsi, the stainless steel one. At a first glance, you would not be able to tell the difference between the two, unless of course you picked it up and you felt the massive difference in weight and general tactility. But from afar, there's no difference. And I think that's a fantastic thing. Now, when it comes to my personal preference, I really do not care for precious metals in watches. I think that gets too close to jewelry, and I do think there's a distinction between watches and jewelry. I would consider watches to be closer to art and jewelry to be something else. So when you start putting jewelry material in watches, then that distinction is not that clear. But in the case of white gold especially, it looks a lot like stainless steel. It's a little bit more lustrous, but from afar you can't really tell the difference between stainless steel, white gold, even platinum in some cases. But the thing about platinum is it's a darker material, and I don't like that shade of gray. So why do I think that this is a fantastic thing, that they relaunched the Pepsi with stainless steel on the Oyster? Because watches are very subjective, and since it's not jewelry, you don't really want everyone to know on first glance that your watch is complete solid white gold. That's perhaps something you'd like to keep to yourself, and that's something unique about this watch, that it's not that obvious even though it's Rolex. I actually think that's the coolest aspect of this watch. Now, I get that a lot of people would feel the contrary. Why would you buy a solid gold piece that costs so much more than a stainless piece and not have anyone recognize that it's gold? To answer that is pretty simple. You're buying watches for yourself. You're buying these pieces of art because you think they're cool, not because somebody else thinks they're cool, not because of the hype. It's because you have appreciation for the workmanship or the art or the design or the mechanics behind the watch. And that's the reason you're buying these watches. And the distinction of having a white gold watch, maybe you like the weight more, maybe it's something more special to you, maybe it's not something so obvious, and that's why you like it. Now, I'd like to give a quick plug to Ken Watches, as they're the ones who let me get a hands-on with this piece and most of the new watches on the channel. So they're a watch dealer in Hong Kong, and they do ship worldwide, so do check them out at kenwatches.com if you want some really cool pieces. Now, if we take a look at the Batman, it was launched in 2013, and it was a new color scheme, and everyone loved it. But that's not the case with the Pepsi. The Pepsi Bezel has been around for a lot longer. This was more of a revival of an icon in white gold initially, and then later in steel. I think it was extremely tasteful of Rolex to to have done this in white gold for a few years before launching it in steel, because it's sort of a more special commemoration of a relaunch of a particular design that was so famous. And then of course they brought back the stainless steel because that was the original watch. It was Pepsi Bezel GMT Master in stainless steel. Now for the all black, well, black and green GMT Master 2, the relaunch of the GMT Master line back in 2007 with the ceramic bezel. This is undoubtedly the most versatile of the bunch. Not many people would recognize this to be a Rolex on the first glance, from a distance at least. It looks a lot like a Submariner, so there is that. But when it comes to the Pepsi, there's an absolute distinction of what this watch is. The blue-red bezel is synonymous with the GMT Master line from Rolex. Launched in 1954, the reference 6542 was the first pilot's watch with this bezel configuration. So it doesn't matter which generation you're from. If you are a watch enthusiast, you'll probably know about this and you'll appreciate this. And having this entire package redone first in white gold, I think this is overall a really clever move by Rolex to cement this watch as something very special in the years to come. Now, this is not that hyped at the moment, but I think that's because people have not really recognized the fact that this would be the first launch of the Pepsi. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years this starts to really see a lot of appreciation in terms of, well, people liking it and monetary value as well. That wouldn't be out of the realm for this watch. It's really odd to say this about a nearly $40,000 US dollar watch that is solid white gold, but I think it's still a little bit underappreciated. Now, the reason for this is kind of twofold. Typically, it would have seen more appreciation than it has had Rolex not relaunched the Pepsi with the Oyster bracelet in 2021. So I think this is a fantastic move by them because it really helps people that want to buy this watch buy it at less of an exorbitant rate. Now, if we take a look at the long-term prospects of this watch, this is a solid gold watch. And typically, solid gold watches have done a lot better at holding their value than stainless steel watches. Now, in certain cases, stainless steel watches could appreciate a lot more in terms of percentage from the original price than when they were launched. But there's actually no real guarantee that a certain stainless steel watch should be worth more than its retail price. You simply can't. It's based on trends, and trends change. But in the case of gold, gold always has intrinsic value. So I think it's a lot safer bet to place a lot of money in something that's based on gold than steel. And that's why this is my favorite GMT Master 2. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Check this video out if you haven't already seen it.